Hello everyone, it's Jamal Thomas. Welcome to the Progressive Soapbox. So James Comey is making his rounds. He's been running from pillar to post, hawking his book. I don't have great feelings about James Comey. I look at James Comey as to be some political actor. What's her name? Meghan McCain. Just call him a political commentator. You come across as a political commentator, man. I would go further, and I would say much worse. Fact is, let me show you the lingering image in my mind of James Comey. 15 minutes, 38 seconds of shamefulness. Every Bernie supporter remembers this.
We do assess that hostile actors gained access to the private commercial email accounts of people with whom Secretary Clinton was in regular contact from her personal account. We also assess that Secretary Clinton's use of a personal email domain was both known by a large number of people and readily apparent. She also used her personal email extensively while outside the United States, including sending and receiving work-related emails in the territory of sophisticated adversaries. Given that combination of factors, we assess it is possible that hostile actors gained access to Secretary Clinton's personal email account. So that's what we found. Finally, with respect to our recommendation to the Department of Justice. In our system, the prosecutors make the decisions about whether charges are appropriate based on evidence that the FBI helps collect. Although we don't normally make public our recommendations to the prosecutors, we frequently make recommendations and engage in productive conversations with prosecutors about what resolution may be appropriate given the evidence. In this case, given the importance of the matter, I think unusual transparency is in order. Although there is evidence of potential violations of the statutes regarding the handling of classified information, our judgment is that no reasonable prosecutor would bring such a case. Prosecutors necessarily weigh a number of factors before deciding whether to bring charges. There are obvious considerations like the strength of the evidence, especially regarding intent. Responsible decisions also consider the context of a person's actions and how similar situations have been handled in the past. In looking back at our investigations into the mishandling or removal of classified information, we cannot find a case that would support bringing criminal charges on these facts.
Except against Brian Nishimura that he did so a year prior. That was shameful. That was absolutely shameful. That is a man who stood and looked in the camera for 15 minutes and 38 seconds and lied to the American public. Shame! Shame on you, sir. And now you're hawking your book. Unusual transparency. I always giggle at that. I couldn't help it. It's an involuntary reaction when I hear somebody say unusual transparency while at the same token lying to the American public. It's amazing. It's an awesome bit of propaganda. It's a precarious twist of a phrase. Unusual transparency as I tell you something that is unequivocally untrue. Untrue. Trey Gowdy, I showed in my last video, eviscerated Comey on that very point. Essentially going through one case after the next, asking Trey Gowdy, is this a lie? Yes. Is this a lie? Yes. Is this a lie? Yes. The amazing part about this is he enumerates all of these things. Comey goes down the list, naming one thing after the next that's taking place, even going so far as to say foreign actors have most likely gotten their hands on some of the information that Hillary Clinton willfully allowed to get into the hands of bad actors. I said that wrong, but you know what I mean. Essentially, the way she went about her affairs allowed that information to exceed to other actors. Today, as he's hawking his book, the question came up to Comey about whether or not he's considered himself a Republican. This is the deal. I find this interesting, and I want to talk about it right here. Comey, GOP has left me and many others and become the party of Trump. Now, I don't think that's true. I think the GOP was always the party of Trump. I think that the base nature of the GOP, for the most part, has fundamentally been the things that Donald Trump espoused. Thing is, Donald Trump is not some aberration of the Republican Party. He's not. I'm sorry, he's not. He's gotten in that office and done Republican things. Democrats like to make him as if he's some aberration. Oh my God, this is something different. He's not something different. His tone is different. He may tweet bad things to people in somewhat of a more harsh way. But for all intents and purposes, the things that he espouse, talk about, and go through are Republican permutations, either of its base or of its upper crust, especially when you get into financial matters. I don't know what Comey is talking about. I suspect what Comey is talking about is racism. Honestly, when these people scream at Trump about his quote-unquote values, I think that's what they're talking about. It's not how horrible it is for somebody to die on the street without food or without health care. It's, oh, we don't like this racism stuff. We're Clinton Republicans. You know, they used to have Reagan Democrats. I think Comey's just a Clinton Republican, which allows certain questions to be asked. This was a man who quoted himself in the law, in the FBI. I am justice. I am the goddamn arbiter of justice. And he stood up there for 15 minutes and 38 seconds and did the opposite of what he was supposed to do. The thing is, if you're telling me now that Donald Trump doesn't represent your values and you're no longer Republican, if you're telling me that the party has left you and that you saw Trump as this kind of existential threat, you saw him as a problem, would seeing him in that way nudge you in the least to maybe allow that woman to walk when she really shouldn't have walked, being that she was a political opponent? Yes, I'm asking these questions because I think these questions need to be asked in light of what you just said there that was not necessarily true. That wasn't true. Let's take a look at the article in The Hill. FBI Director James Comey in his new interview railed against the Republican Party, saying he thinks the GOP has lost its way. The Republican Party has left me and many others, Comey, who was a registered Republican for most of his life, said during an interview in the ABC News podcast Start Here, when asked whether he considers himself a Republican in the heart of hearts. I just think they've lost their way and I can't be associated with it. Comey said he saw the change in the party take place with the President Trump campaign. He said the campaign has continued to change over the course of the Trump presidency. To people who don't present anything that I believe, he said. He added that he thinks the Republican Party now reflects entirely Donald Trump's values. It doesn't reflect values at all. It's transactional. It's ego-driven. It's in service to its ego, Comey said. I have no idea what that means. I have absolutely no idea what that means. The Republican Party is unempathetic, cares only about itself. That's what I think the Republican Party is. I think the Republican Party is in service to the top 1%, if not 0.1%. I don't just think it. You can look at it. It's exactly what they do. Nobody in their right mind goes into office. Do you know right now, they were voting to steal Social Security. Social Security has trillions of dollars that it's owed to it. These guys have literally was in office trying to steal Social Security. Republicans 90-something% voting to do it with a few Democrats backing it. They're out for themselves and they're out for their donors. That's what I think. I think if the Republican Party, these are the people who are trying to steal healthcare. These are the people who are trying to destroy Medicare, Social Security. So understand, I don't think much of what that party is. That party has no values. That party has never had values. The idea that, okay, I can't say that that's too strong, but you know what I mean. I'm making this point that values in the context of the Republican Party, of the current Republican Party, is meaningless. They don't exist. If you want to call values how much money we can make and how profitable we can be and how much power we can take, then yes, those are values. Those are not the values that I think Comey is talking about, but those are the values that are the Republican Party and has been for a very long time. What changed, Comey? What changed? Is it the overt racism that you feel from Donald Trump? Is that what it is? Now, if that's what it is, fair enough. But the idea that you're a Republican before, I guess I'm making this point that nothing has changed in the Republican Party. The only difference is there's a different face that's on the Republican Party, but nothing has changed in the Republican Party. There have always been factions in the Republican Party. And of course, there were factions in the party that didn't like this racism stuff. It's a little over. It's too much. It's too much. Fair enough. You're a Clintonite Republican. Obama gave 95% of the wealth to the top 1%. I would imagine you would say that's about right. And ergo, I am a Clintonite Republican. So again, I think this brings up questions. Everyone looks at this. All the Republicans look at this. And they wonder, and even Bernie supporters look at this and think, how on earth do you let that woman off? And you bring up, I mean, Comey says no one in their right mind will bring a case like this. And then you find like a few days later, here's the case. This went a year ago. Here's the case, Comey. Here's the case. Here's the case. Here's the case. You said no case. No reasonable prosecutor will bring up a case. Was this prosecutor insane that brought up this case? What are you talking about? And if so, why? Why did you let her walk? Why on earth did you let her walk? Then you find out that Stroikes, the person that was instrumental in changing the language associated with the case or working with the case, was also instrumental in getting Donald Trump campaign surveilled. This stinks. This stinks magnificently. And the idea this guy's running around talking about values. Values my ass. It's not one of those things that you can prove per se. But I make this point that in the same legal sense that these guys use, lying is consciousness of guilt. And if Comey is up there making this argument that intent, he's extending the goalposts right off the bat. And then you find out later, yeah, I don't particularly like this president. I didn't think this president was a good fit. And I think that this guy's a wrong fit for the Republican Party. I understand you coded in the image of the FBI. But is there any degree that your distaste, your dislike, the idea that you think this guy's breaking and destroying the Republican Party and that the Republican Party has left you, did that in any way weigh on your conscience? Did your values transcend the office itself? That's what I'm getting at. When people talk about their values and everything else, did your values transcend the office that you were in to a degree that maybe pushed you in the way of doing something that you probably shouldn't have did, or at the very least at the office, that went beyond what the office required you to do? You let her walk, Comey. You shouldn't have let her walk. That's what it boils down to. Don't tell me about your values when you're letting her walk. So, I'll leave it at that. Comey saying he left the Republican Party. That's great. When did you leave the Republican Party? If you thought Donald Trump was a threat and a risk, did that in any way have any decision on at all on you letting that woman walk? I suspect that when Meghan McCain is flipping out at Comey on this, I suspect that's where it comes from. This feeling that you're supposed to be this idea of coded injustice and the bearer of justice. And when you had the opportunity to do something that you were supposed to do with all eyes on you, with the entire nation waiting to hear what you were going to say, the things that you said essentially extended the goalposts on what would be required to get Hillary convicted. And now you're selling your book, screaming that you're a representative of justice and the Republican Party has left you and all this other stuff. Okay. And yes, I don't particularly like Comey, so take what I'm saying within that context. But by the way, just because I don't like Comey doesn't mean what I'm saying is wrong. Everything that I've said is true there. Comey saying that, he did say that Misha Mira is or was behind bars over the exact same thing that Hillary Clinton was being locked up for. Those are just straightforward, somewhat flat facts, I would argue. I'm sure somebody would argue with them, but those things are true. And then you start asking the question, just from a human being standpoint, if this guy believed that Donald Trump was a clear and present threat, regardless of his office being in the FBI, with his values, nudge him a little, even in a little degree, to let her walk. I suspect, and I make the point, that all the incentives go in that direction. And I would go beyond just saying the incentives. The fact that Nishimir is in prison, Hillary Clinton walked, and you find all of these oddities with this idea of spying on the president. Yeah, I think it stinks. So, judge for yourself. James Comey making his rounds. All right, guys. Have a good one. If you enjoy the content, please feel free to share, like, subscribe, and of course, you can always help the show through Patreon. Thanks, everyone.